With its open world and beat-em-up gameplay, it's natural to want to compare Yakuza to Grand Theft Auto and Streets of Rage. But as far as I'm concerned, this long-running Sega franchise has more in common with Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, and all of those cheesy soap operas my grandmother used to be addicted to. When you strip back the constant street fights and the full back tattoos, you'll find a convoluted story with over-the-top family drama, shady business dealings, unexpected love triangles, baby troubles, people coming back from the dead, and backstabbing. So much backstabbing. Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, is a game that delights in all of this drama and isn't afraid to embrace its goofy side, which is why it continues to prove itself as video games' most enduring soap opera. This is, once again, the story of Kazuma Kiryu. He's older now, pushing 50, and doing what he can to disconnect from his violent past. He's no longer a Yakuza, choosing instead to step down as the 4th chairman of the famed Tojo clan and open up an orphanage for stranded kids. Of course, trouble has a way of finding Kiryu, and it won't be long before he's forced to resort to ugly tactics in order to help the people he loves the most. One of those people is Haruka, who's recently gone missing and seems to be in great danger. This leads to our hero inadvertently getting into the middle of a gang war, which turns out to be a whole lot more complicated than it sounds. Oh, and there's also a baby. If you're confused, then you know exactly how Kiryu feels. He's looking for answers and ready to punch literally every single person in Tokyo in order to get his way. What I like about Yakuza 6 is that it forces us to investigate what happened and peel back the layers one by one. There's a compelling mystery here that takes Kiryu out of his comfort zone and into uncharted territory. This means leaving his regular stomping ground and traveling to Hiroshima in an effort to find clues about Haruka. Before long, he's making friends and getting himself into even more trouble with local gangs. If you've played a Yakuza game, then none of this is going to surprise you. It's the Kazuma way. When it comes down to it, not much of Yakuza 6 is going to surprise longtime fans. This is a game that plays into the formulas in both good and bad ways. There's still a lot of street fighting, lengthy cinemas, and tons of minigames. You'll roam around the modestly sized cities, getting jumped by gangs and taking on side quests. This is very much a continuation that doesn't try to shake things up too much. If anything, Yakuza 6 scales things back a bit. Not in terms of minigames and side quests, they're still great, but in a lot of ways this feels like a throwback to earlier titles. The sequel returns to only giving us one playable character, which helps to streamline the story and keep things moving. On top of that, Kiryu only has one fighting style, something that took a little getting used to after spending so many hours playing Yakuza Kiwami last year. And speaking of hours, this game is considerably shorter than the last few Yakuza games, clocking in at less than 20 hours. The good news is that the story is compelling, and Sega knows how to keep us hooked with a lot of plot twists and cliffhangers. Like any good mystery, the game offers a steady drip of tantalizing information that constantly keeps you guessing. It taps into all the best soap opera cliches, giving us one major reveal after another, all leading to a reasonably satisfying conclusion. I say reasonably satisfying because the game ends up undoing much of what I liked about the ending in a lengthy post-credit cinema. I have a lot of good and bad things to say about that ending. Now, on something of a side note, I think it's worth mentioning that this game spends a lot of time reminding us that Kiryu is getting old. It's not an exaggeration to say that at least 50% of the people he runs into either call him old or grandpa or something like that. From a storytelling perspective, I love the idea of Kiryu forced to embrace the aging process and accept that he won't be able to street fight forever. But the game doesn't actually do anything with that concept beyond just calling him old a bunch of times. I mean, he may be pushing 50, but he still fights like he's 25. He has no problem taking down dozens of trained gang members, all of which are about half his age. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's nitpicking, but I want to see that age actually means something to this character. This series wants to have it both ways. I suppose you could say the same thing about the side quests, which take the game in some surprisingly goofy directions. With the main quest being deadly serious, it's fun to have to fight ghosts in a graveyard, help a time traveler, and even get to the bottom of a Freaky Friday situation where two people swap bodies. There are a lot of these side missions, and they do a good job of bringing some much-needed humor to the otherwise dark material. That said, going straight from a gang war to a mascot minigame is a bit jarring at times. Speaking of which, the batch of minigames in Yakuza 6 is, to put it bluntly, incredible. In fact, there's a chance that they overshadow the rest of the game. You of course get to sing karaoke, throw darts, play a game of baseball, scuba dive, and so much more. But the real highlight here are the 5 arcade games, which not only include genuine Sega classics like Super Hang-On, Outrun, and Space Harrier, but also 2-player versions of Puyo Puyo and Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. You have absolutely no idea how much time I spent playing these games, and there's an argument to be made that Yakuza 6 is worth buying for Virtua Fighter 5 alone. Now, that's not to say that all of the minigames are worth playing. One of the weakest links is this terrible real-time strategy gang war that sees you sending out people to fight for you. I like the idea of searching the city for new people to recruit and eventually using them in battles, but the execution is all wrong. The same thing goes for a minigame centered around a crying baby. Between using the analog sticks and shaking the controller, I'm convinced this minigame doesn't actually work. On the other hand, there's a good chance that it's not that far off from trying to calm a real baby. Of course, the game has a few other things going for it beyond the incredible selection of minigames, such as great-looking visuals. No matter if it's the always bustling Tokyo streets or the quiet and secluded back alleys found in Hiroshima, these feel like real, lived-in cities that aren't just part of a video game background. There's an attention to detail at every house, store, and playground. The same goes for the expressive faces, all of which look incredible on the PlayStation 4. This is a sharp-looking game, especially in some of the more epic battles. In a lot of ways, Yakuza 6 feels like an incredibly safe sequel. That's not to say it's a bad sequel, but it certainly plows a lot of familiar ground. While I largely enjoyed the mystery and couldn't wait to see what happened next, I was a little disappointed that it ditched some of the franchise's previous enhancements and scaled things back. Thankfully, the pulpy story and the incredible mini-games helped to overshadow some of the weaker elements. Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, is another solid game in the long-running series, but some fans may be hoping to see more from the franchise. Hey, thanks for watching our review. So here's the question of the day. What's your favorite long-running video game story? I'm not talking about a trilogy, but rather a story that's been carried across a bunch of games over many years. Although it's had some ups and downs, I think I'd go with the Metal Gear franchise. Let me hear your picks in the comments below. In other news, I'm currently hard at work on a bunch of upcoming reviews, as well as new episodes of Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst and Review Rewind. I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.